before we have public. There's a fisherman, Shay Baumgard, 30 years old, who had a terrible accident. I don't know if all of you heard about it. A deer went through the windshield. He's in critical condition down at Harborview. And so keep him in your thoughts and prayers. And so the first item is roll call. Commissioner McCauley? Here. And Commissioner Robbins is here. Commissioner Jorgensen?
Who?
Wasn't on.
Ho, ho, ho!
Hey, Jim, I noticed you're missing your placard there with your name on it. Hang on.
Oh, there's something on there, I can tell.
This has also been signed by a whole bunch of us here at the port, so
Ah, gee.
that's something for you to keep with you.
Did Santa sign it?
Santa may have signed it.
Thank you very much.
This is Commissioner Jorgensen's final meeting after 12 years. I figured it out today. I think this is his 275th commission meeting.
Good Lord.
And we get paid for 120 meetings a year over 12 years. He's been to close to 1,500 meetings representing the Port of Bellingham. And this is his final meeting. Jim, unlike Commissioner McCauley or myself, has had a personal secretary who answered the phone for him and did all his emails for him, and also was his tech person. Patricia, if you could please come up here. You could come around and stand next to your husband.
She's a pretty good gal, 52 years.
52 years.
52 years, can you
And a
believe that?
half.
That's what the same woman.
Well, there may be a little photo session for those that would like to take a picture.
Oh, Kathy, my phone's right there on the chair.
You want to have your picture taken?
Not with those
What it
guys.
says,
Stand behind.
Mike,
We could, I guess.
probably something nasty.
Please stand up.
Let's have one with the...
Because we're not on film or anything,
Yeah.
so there's no reason
No,
for us
it's
to get
not
rid
being...
of you guys.
No.
No.
Let's have a picture.
Hey, Frank,
Frank,
Who wants the rabbit?
come on.
look at the
I
camera.
just want the boat that Rob promised me. That's all I care about.
After the meeting, you got to flip this way, okay?
Okay. Oh, that's very
Take my glasses off.
Okay.
Gee, thanks.
We've got one other little item to give to Commissioner Jorgensen in honor of the Seahawks 12.
Holy
also
smokes.
put the Port of Bellingham on a 12 hat for you. So
Oh.
when you're watching the games, you can think of that.
It happens to be his 12th year, so that works
Thank
in
you
really
very
well.
much.
Yeah, 12 years of service. Yeah.
That's not the 12th man. That's
It's both.
oh, covered. Gee whiz, pretty snazzy.
Well, thank you, Patricia. So with that, we'll continue with our public comment. Is there anyone signed up for public comment?
No one has signed up.
Is there anyone who neglected to sign up that is here for public comment? Very good. We'll move to the consent agenda. Diane, if you could please read that.
A motion to approve consent agenda items A through D.
Okay, gentlemen, do you have any questions on the consent agenda?
I don't.
I had one on first item on the agenda, and that had to do with page 3. And what it's speaking to is public hearings, and I guess that's one of the things that has somewhat amazed me over the years of being on the Port Commission is all the public hearings that we've had and how many times nobody ever shows up. And yet, you know, you get a few people, not many, that come in and have nasty things to say, but the fact is that when you have a situation like we had for the public hearing on, this was dealing primarily with the, what's it called, the marine, anyway, it deals with Blaine and all of the various projects that are in the process of being worked on, and yet no one comes. I don't know if that's going to be solved or talked about with doing meetings at a different time, or what might be the, anybody? I'm just curious if any of you have any comments about that.
Well, I think a lot of it has to do with being televised. I think there's fewer people that come for public comment now that it's televised, but.
Oh, never thought of that. Jeez.
When I was in the Marine Corps, there was a saying that silence is consent, so I just always assumed we were doing it perfectly.
See, I didn't think of that either. That's very good,
It's
Mike.
hard
I
to
like
say with a
that.
straight face. right?
Did you have any other questions on the
I have
consent
nothing to
agenda?
say.
And you, Commissioner McCall, anything else? I just had one on item B on the Bennett landfill monitoring. That's where we're monitoring the landfill where it's the gas is coming off it. And I was amazed it was $30,000, and it looks like we've now moved it to 70.
Thank you,
Maybe
Commissioner.
explain that.
Brian Gowan, Director of Environmental Programs. Yes, that's correct. This is going to be an annual, ongoing annual renewal of a contract, depending on if it's Bennett Engineering or not. We're under a post-closure permit for the Airport Wood Waste Landfill, and that requires regular monitoring. And we've actually greatly reduced the dollar amount. Every year we've reduced the parameters and the amount of monitoring that is required out there. So this is actually the smallest contract amount that it's been in years. But it is going to be a long-term monitoring that is likely to go for another 15 to 20 years at least. But we're trying to greatly reduce every year how much effort and cost is associated with that.
Well, correct my confusion. It says here that the current budget is $37,000, and the budget request is $29,000 for amended budget of $66,000.
Right, and then plus a contingency that was already authorized. So the let's see here on the.
So did it double in?
So we approved the contract last year. So the existing budget was for last year's service. Now we're amending the budget to increase or to cover this year's monitoring services.
So it's still about 35 or 37,000 a year. It's not 70 a year.
No, right, correct. Yeah, it's 70 total, and that covers last year's.
For 2 years?
Yeah, correct.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
Sorry about that.
That was my only question.
Okay.
Okay, hearing no questions, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Passes 3-0. Our next item on the agenda is a presentation from the Small Business Development Center.
A motion to authorize the executive director to sign I'm sorry.
Whoops.
I'm jumping the gun here. A little bit.
Thanks, Dan. John Mitchell,
Hold it.
Economic Development Specialist. Good afternoon,
Well, hold on.
Commissioners. I have CJ Seitz with me here today, and she's just going to provide a real brief update on the SBDC. She'll be coming back after the first of the year, once the year-end numbers and things are in, to give a full update, but she's just here today to give a brief update and answer any questions you might have about the services agreement we're being asked to go forward today. Thanks.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. CJ Seitz, Western Washington University Small Business Development Center. And as John mentioned, that I'm here today just to give a brief overview of 2015 and in support of the Economic Development Services contract between the Port and Western Washington University's SBDC. As you know, I'll be back here in January giving a full report on our 2015 outcomes and the funding return on investment. So due to that and also my voice, I'm going to keep it extremely brief. We've had a great year. It started out with transition. We had a transition of a certified business advisor and also of the director position. And I'm happy to report those positions are going well, and we're both recertified with the state of Washington. That was a 6-month process, demonstrating 12 competencies. And our team is solidified and working well. Despite all that work, we were able to exceed our contract goals, and I'm looking forward to telling you more about that in January, including some of our highlights, which is some business succession transfers, some growth management strategies, and some really fun new startups. This local support helped us support over 600 businesses last year and do some intensive counseling with over 300 businesses, and we're grateful for that. Every day we get to see empowered business owners. So if you have any questions about the 2016, contract, I'd be happy to answer them for you.
Any questions? No?
No questions. Well, great.
You look thankful, actually.
Sorry?
You looked a bit thankful there. Yeah, no.
And thank you for your service, Commissioner Jorgensen. Thank you.
She said thanks for your service.
You did? Oh, I haven't got my, now it's on.
Thank you, CJ. So, our next item is also a presentation on Whatcom County tourism.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. Dodd Snodgrass, Economic Development Specialist. And also on the action item agenda today is our 2016 annual contract with Bellingham Whatcom County Tourism. So today we're also offering a short presentation about tourism from Lonnie Rahm, the President CEO.
Well, Sylvia just told me that it had to be brief, so I'm not going to be able to go through every one of these 9,000 pieces of paper. I know you're very disappointed, but I am going to share with you one thing that we just got in. Part of what Bellingham Whatcom County Tourism does for economic development is we're your PR firm. We are the public relations, media relations outreach for a lot of the people who come here for business relocation, for visiting, and as we all know, most people who relocate a business or start a business someplace visit first. Well, we're very pleased to bring this to you today. This is HGTV Magazine, and there's a very nice feature in there on the gingerbread house competition.
Uh-huh.
So, nicely done. I do have to have this back, or my marketing director will kill it. And she's tough, she's mean. She can be mean. Also included in this packet that I will leave for you for your reading pleasure are some of the pieces that we produce on behalf of visitors, local businesses, and the traveling marketplace. We do several e-newsletters per month. One that's aimed directly at the business community here, one that's aimed at the media, and one that's aimed at visitors. And so we printed a copy of each of those for you to review. Also, we do a month-end activity report that has a lot of the stats and figures, and they range anywhere from 6 to 12 pages per month, which is an outline of what it is that we do on behalf of economic development in Whatcom County. And I'm not sure, I'm going to give this to Dodd, and he can hang on to it for us. The most important thing that we want to make sure that you're aware of, and I know that you are, is that our partnership includes representation at the airport and also at the cruise terminal. So I have some numbers. Our Bellingham International Airport interactions have dropped dramatically from the construction time zone, and as we are now currently doing a tiny little construction project, tiny compared to what you guys do, I can tell you that our value to you during that construction zone chaos was absolutely phenomenal in getting people to and from their gates, the baggage claim, because it was a moving target, as you remember. One day you'd get on a plane and baggage claim was here, and you'd get off the plane the next day and baggage claim was over there. And so our numbers are not as high as they had been during that time, but we're still very close to 5,000 interactions at the airport. We have concierge ambassadors out there on Monday, Thursday, Friday, and Saturday, and we're adding Tuesday after the first of the year. So we'll have people out there 5 days a week. We also have ambassadors and a community concierge at the cruise terminal on the days of the ferries. So whenever there's a boat coming in, there's a person at the information center there to represent our needs. Mr. Jorgensen, Commissioner Jorgensen, it has been an honor to work with you. I know. I'm going to miss you. I didn't realize that you had only been here a few years when I got here. You just acted like you'd always sat in that chair. You acted like you'd always sat in that chair, and I hope that your retirement is as productive as your time here has been.
Well, thank you very much.
It's been a pleasure. And I'll be back after the first of the year to also talk more about the facts and figures on the year end. Thank you.
Hang on one second, Lonnie, quick question.
Oh, yeah. Questions
So
thing.
the airport, have you been able to connect with us on getting local things on our screens out there? Has that? I
We
haven't
do.
seen that.
Yes, we have. We've provided all of our images and videos for your use, and so a lot of what's shown on there, in between emergency information, flight information, information that's TSA oriented, all of our videos are available for your use and are being rotated on a regular basis.
And although the Port of Bellingham definitely advocates for our entire county and our region, the HGTV references for that gingerbread was just for the Port of Bellingham, so that was kind of, thank you, by the way. Yeah.
Part of how that works is that your departmental heads are very good at providing us with information in an advance purpose. We can't have something and get it into a publication. This took over a year and a half, because we started pitching it a year and a half ago. It caught their attention. We sent them pictures from last year's holiday port, and it was an intriguing enough thing for them to cover this year. So kudos to you for doing good events, for doing them consistently, and for providing us with the information far enough in advance that we can represent you.
Yeah. I think it's cool, because I doubt that many ports make it into that magazine. So,
No.
yeah.
No, they don't.
Commissioners, thank you, Lonnie, for the presentation. Commissioners, I just want to point out the importance of the airport guides that Lonnie has come out there. Incredible, as she pointed out. Very helpful during the renovation when things were always put in a different spot. But just on a day-to-day basis, and at the cruise terminal as well, her staff is very friendly. They walk up to people unprompted. They introduce themselves, and I think they're great ambassadors, not just for the Port of Bellingham, but for our entire community. So big thanks to Lonnie for that.
And thank you for your continued support. Also, we would really like to have more airlines scheduled, more airlines, more flights.
Talking about buying a couple of planes, we should.
I would also like to echo that I think your ambassador program is excellent, and the money we spend for tourism is well spent. And thank you for the job that you do, Lonnie. Do you have any comments, Commissioner?
No.
Before we move into the action items, there's two things I neglected here. Number one is Commissioner Jorgensen we're having a reception for him, a retirement reception that you're all invited to on Thursday from 4 to 6 at the ferry terminal. And I also neglected to recognize and say hi to our newly elected commissioner that'll be taking Commissioner Jorgensen's place, Bobby Briscoe. Welcome.
So you might be dirtier than I normally am. I don't know. How do you?
I looked at my watch and in about 2 minutes I figured I just had to deal with the uptown.
So our next item is we've got 10 action items. So let's start with the first one, if we could, please, Diane.
A motion to authorize the executive director to sign a services agreement between the Port of Bellingham and Western Washington University in the amount of $225,000 to fund small business development services.
Thank you, Diane. Good afternoon again, Commissioners. John Michener, Economic Development Specialist. As we sort of just went over with CJ funding the SBDC, this is authorizing the Executive Director to execute that services agreement between the Port and Western Washington University.
Okay.
Any questions?
Any questions, Commissioner? Any questions? Couldn't hear it?
Not very well. Would you mind saying that again?
I won't mind at all, Commissioner, not at all.
There you go.
How's that? That better?
Yes.
So this is authorizing our Executive Director to sign the services agreement between the Port and Western Washington University for the Small Business Development Center for 2016, much as CJ was just speaking about earlier.
Oh, thank you very much.
You're very welcome.
The only comment I have is I really like this relationship between Whatcom County and Bellingham, City of Bellingham and the Port all doing this together. I think it's a great relationship, and I really appreciate it that we're all involved. It shows that we can all work together.
Yeah, I agree.
Okay, hearing no other questions, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Passes 3-0.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Our second action item, Diane, if you could, please. If you could please read action item number 3.
The lighter bulb is burned out, so.
So he's lining this. Approve the draft 2016 legislative objectives shared between the Port of Bellingham, the City of Bellingham, and Whatcom County.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. Mike Hogan, Public Affairs Administrator. This is coming back. You saw the draft legislative agenda in October, and since that time, there's been one minor tweak. Again, MOTCA is our top priority, getting funding for the Whatcom projects. Before it was implement transportation projects. Now it's implement infrastructure projects. Rail safety is a priority for 2016 legislative session. Criminal justice and social services funding, protect local revenue sharing, and aquatic invasive species control. And again, this is shared legislative objectives between the Port, the City of Bellingham, and Whatcom County. With your approval, we'll move forward. You heard from Tom McBride with McBride Associates in October giving a recap of the 2015 session, and we'll move forward with McBride Associates again in the 2016 session.
Thank you, Mike. Any comments or
Yeah,
questions?
Mike, who is engaged in the conversation that puts this list together?
So it's Brian Heinrich with the mayor's office and Tyler Schroeder with the Whatcom County Executive's office.
Okay, and then the question.
And then I'm sorry, and then the port, we work with port staff, that they work with their representative bodies and come up with mutual areas of shared legislative objectives.
All right, so the Council of Governments obviously is doing their own kind of lobbying, but there's one thing that constantly comes up through the Council of Governments, and this goes back to, Pete Kremen was given a hard time about it for years when he was a county executive, and that's the amount of dollars that are returned from the state, because we're, I don't know if I'm properly stating, but we send more dollars than we get back, which is weird. And it's been a constant complaint, and I still don't see it on a list of things that we should be lobbying for. Did that come up at all in these conversations this year?
It did not, but we'd be happy to add that to the conversation and as we move forward.
Sure. I mean, especially for me this year, because I'm in this like complaint mode about MACA right now. So I'd like to complain about something else.
Yeah.
Also, while I'm there doing it. So I'll just add that to my list then. Okay. Thank you. Appreciate that.
Commissioner Jorgensen, any comments?
No.
Once again, I like all three of us together on this, all lobbying with one lobbyist, all three entities. I think it just shows a good working relationship. Thanks to our executive and the mayor and Executive Laos as well. It's really nice. So, hearing no other comments, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you very much, Mike.
Thank you, Commissioner.
3-0. Action item number 4.
A motion by the Commission approving the commercial lease between the Port of Bellingham and Creative Incorporated for Suite 106, located at the 11 Bellwether Building.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. Judy Harvey, Real Estate Representative. Creative Inc. is a startup business about 8 months into its initial idea. It's a social media management technology company. The founder and president, Alex Korobov, is here in the audience with us today. We're really pleased to bring this lease forward. It's for a term of 1 year. It has two one-year renewal options. There's a 1-month no rent period to allow the tenant to prepare the premises for occupancy. Alex anticipates initially having 6 employees and increasing that to 14. It meets the rental revenue standards. Creative Inc. was represented by the Moliot Group, which is in the lease, and the broker fee will be paid according to the Port Commission broker compensation policy. Any questions?
Do you have any? Go ahead.
I was just going to ask if Alex could come up and give just a real brief description of the first or second paragraph, where is it? I'm looking. Anyway, explaining in a little more detail of what you do with your service.
Sounds good. So my name is Alex Korbov. I am the president of Creative. Creative is a social media management and marketing company, basically dedicated towards managing social media accounts on behalf of businesses to help maintain a good online image and basically help grow businesses through the social media accounts that we manage. So Creative is a new startup company. It's currently about, as Judy's mentioned, 8 months into the process from the initial idea. And we have great sort of ideas, and we're basically coming out the game with a fresh mind and with a new motive. So,
Gotcha. So your number of employees is more than doubled.
Or
will more than double, I should say.
Yeah, we're within about 2 months. We plan on having a team of 6 employees. These employees would be the people that would be monitoring and managing the social media accounts, along with the managers themselves. And towards the end of the year, we plan on having somewhere in between 12 and 16 employees.
Alex, are you new to Bellingham?
I actually moved over to Bellingham about 6 years ago, so fairly new. I grew up in Spokane, Washington. I moved over to Bellingham just because a lot of my family was going out this way, so it's a beautiful city, and I love being here. So,
well, welcome to the port. Did you ever think it would take a 22-page lease to lease something for 1 year?
Yeah, it's kind of crazy sometimes seeing how the process works. So,
well, welcome.
Yeah, thank you.
Alex, Mr. Jorgensen's Twitter account is atrocious. Do you think you can help with that?
Yeah, that's why we're here. There's a lot of businesses that sort of fail in the social media aspect, and I feel like many businesses don't utilize or don't take full control over their social media accounts and what they could really do, and that's where I think we come in and help businesses out. So,
all right. Well, good luck to you.
Thank you.
And welcome.
Thank you very much.
Any other questions, gentlemen? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Passes 3-0. Thank you, Judy. Action item number 5, please, Diane.
A motion by the Port Commission to approve a modification of harbor land lease between the Port of Bellingham and Zephyr Investments Incorporated for property located at 2551 Roeder Avenue, Bellingham, Washington.
Thank you, Diane. Good afternoon, Commissioners. Terry Lahi, Real Estate Representative. Zephyr Investments operates TD Current on the corner of Coho Way and Roeder Avenue and have been a tenant since 2011. This is the first rental renegotiation of the 30-year lease, and the rental rates have been set for the next 5 years. The first 2 years have been kept stable with a 2% increase from annual increase from years 3 through 5. I'd be happy to answer any questions. Otherwise, we do recommend approval of this modification.
Any questions, Commissioner?
Yes, Terry. When this lease first came up, there was concern about the sort of marine aspects of the use of that property. Can you update us on how they're managing to meet the standard that the city asked them to meet?
Yes, the lease does have specific provisions of how much of the inside space they can use for marine-related and other aspects, and then the outside storage area is specifically for boat storage or brokerage, and they are meeting those requirements.
Okay, thank you.
They act as a brokerage, you said?
They have not, but it does allow them. Right now, they've just used it for storage of boats in there.
Well, after getting dagger eyes from our real estate department on that 22-page lease, this modification is 2 pages, so congratulations. Are there any other questions?
No, sir.
Hearing none other. Thank you, Terry. Hearing none other. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Thank you.
Passes 3-0. Our next item, please, Diane.
Authorize the Executive Director to execute Amendment Number 41 to the professional service agreement with Anchor QEA for the Whatcom Waterway Phase 1 site cleanup project in the contract amount of $185,396 and including an additional contingency of $14,604 for a total of $200,000 to be added, resulting in a total authorized amount of $11,252,282.50.
Thank you, Diane. Good afternoon, Commissioners. John Hergesheimer, Senior Project Engineer. This amendment is one in a long and continuing line, as you can tell by PSA number 41, to Anchor's contract involving the Whatcom Waterway cleanup and associated project work. This particular request is to do the final phase of establishing or reestablishing the barge ramp in the Whatcom Waterway that was required to be removed as part of the cleanup of the Nationwide 38 construction in the Whatcom Waterway. And at the time of the Nationwide 38 permit, the barge ramp had to be removed as a condition of the cleanup because there was a preferential pathway for contamination involving the barge ramp area. And then so it had to be removed, but by that very same permit, we could not at that time put the barge ramp back in any other location. It was up to in front of the barge ramp, then it could be loaded potentially with product, bulk materials over that barge ramp. But that currently that is only permitted to be there. The barge ramp's only permitted to be there in place when a barge is in place and serviced. And after the barge goes away, then the ramp has to come off and be stored upland. That's a condition of the Nationwide 38 permit. So the continuation of that is to get the permanent approval to have that barge ramp setting there permanently over the water and be serviceable and ready for barges to come in and then be actuated hydraulically and be lifted down onto the barge. So that doesn't require a separate crane to come in and set up and construct the temporary ramp when it's needed. So that's the purpose of having the permanent barge ramp facility. So this shows a close-up, representative close-up of a concept drawing for the barge ramp. The shoreline area on the drawing is, this is the sheet pile wall that was constructed and is in place now under the Whatcom Waterway project. The mooring dolphins will be installed as part of the C Street or the Whatcom Waterway project as well. The capping that's being done is capping this sloped shoreline, so you can kind of get a concept of that. The bulkhead actually runs out like that. And so the permanent structure then are these two facilities that will be constructed in the water, and it's designed to support the barge ramp when a barge is not in place, and then when a barge comes in, there's a operating system there that can raise or lower the barge ramp down onto the barge and then lift it off. So it's designed to be that type of permanent facility. And this is a cross-sectional view of that same structure. This is the sheet pile wall that was constructed with the Whatcom Waterway. This is the cleanup slope that's been constructed or is being constructed as part of the waterway. And again, the ramp structure is here, the barge that it sets on, the dolphins that are being constructed as part of the Whatcom Waterway system. And then this is the lift support structure in here, some piling. And this is currently a concept. There are several means of lifting that will be vetted out when we do the 30, 60, 90% design set. So are there any questions on this PSA?
John, some of this has to happen now. And how much of this project will happen before the American leaves the waterway?
None of this can happen before American leaves. because of the permitting requirements. By the time this is designed and goes through the permit process, we'll be past the in-water work window, which is March 14th. So this gets constructed in, the schedule is for August 1st of 2016.
So no pile at all then, now?
No, we're not permitted to drive that. That's why we had to do a separate permit, separate and completely distinct and apart from the nationwide 38. That's why it's not covered in the American Construction's contract or the nationwide 38.
Any other questions, Commissioner?
Maybe one. When's the expected completion date for the ramp?
The temporary ramp that can be set in by barge is expected to be completed by June of this year. And then the permanent barge ramp facility would be the permanent support for it, would begin construction in August and be completed in approximately 3 months.
So what we're talking about here is the permanent one, not the temporary.
We're talking about the permanent one.
Okay,
right.
so let's back up a step then. If you are able to use the temporary one in June, what are you tying the barges to?
That's a great question. The barges are tied to these mooring dolphins that are
there. Okay.
That are shown there on the drawings.
How does a person access that dolphin?
The dolphin is accessed by a boat coming in from the water and then breasting up against it, or a barge with a tug, and then there needs to be a gangplank that would go across from the barge on the shore, just like is done now. Currently, or in the past, the old Chevron dock, which is actually a derelict structure and has since been removed right here, was the access, for instance, for this Bryce barge to show up. But what would happen in the future is the tug or the barge would move down and breast against part of the Maple Street bulkhead, and that would be the shore access, and then the ramp, the temporary barge ramp, is actually installed with a crane from the shore to rest onto the barge.
And if they want to end on or load off of one end, how do you tie it?
Load off of one end, it would be, clear that. The barge would sit in here endwise, something like this, and the dolphins are spaced with enough, close enough to be able to span that distance, and the cleats are on the shoreline to tie the barges off. So the barge would be tied something like that, and then the barge ramp would access the end of the barge.
I thought I had an easy question. It's continuing. So there was a question about the cleat strength way back when. Has that been modified to support this particular outcome?
The cleat strength is as it was before. It's 20 tons, so it's sufficient. There was an original, you may be talking, there was a cleat strength on the floats, on the Colony Wharf floats that are going to be placed in the Whatcom Waterway. And that the issue on that was, is there sufficient strength on those for pull-out?
All right.
But this has been engineered to support the previous uses at the site with supporting the barges that have come in there in the past. And we've actually added several more cleats along the wall. So there's a cleat now every 60 feet along that wall, there's probably twice as many cleats now as there were in the past.
Commissioner Jorgensen, did you have any questions?
No.
John, I'm a little confused. The temporary barge ramp, will that be the same barge ramp that becomes a permanent barge ramp?
Correct. The nature of the temporary versus permanent is the barge ramp is being designed to be a fabricated steel structure that can be assembled and then placed by crane. And then once it's assembled and fully fabricated, it is designed to also be the permanent use condition. The difference between temporary and permanent are the in-water structures we're talking about today.
Got it. Now, the next question then was, I thought the whole reason that we couldn't have a permanent barge ramp had something to do with fish and being out over the water. That is not the case?
No, that's not the case. We have to go through the permitting process and mitigate for this now overwater coverage, but we're going to use the case when we apply for the mitigation that we should have mitigation credits from the nationwide 38 effort because we did remove we did fill in actual active waterway as part of the nationwide 38 to perform the cleanup.
So when we started this project, it was always going to be a temporary barge ramp that was going to be removed. Now we've decided to try and make it permanent. Is that correct?
It was always, for the nationwide 38 permit, it could only be in a temporary condition. But we had always planned to make that a permanent, a strict changing of location of the permanent barge ramp from one place to the other. We just had to do it in two separate permits, separated in both time and permit type in order to do that. So in other words, we're going after now it's called a letter of permission permit with a Corps. It's like a modified minor Section 10 permit with a Corps to build things in the waterway, which is totally separate from the nationwide 38, which is cleanup only.
John, the permit you just mentioned, what is it again?
It's a letter of permission.
Mm-hmm.
It's a request to the Corps of Engineers. And you can do that, according to the Corps of Engineers, you can do that when the basis is doing a project that's based roughly on another project. And so by doing that, we can take all the biological evaluation, all that work that was done for the nationwide cleanup, and just repackage it for a very much smaller project and use that effort that was done in the past.
Is there a time limit on that in case we wanted to do the same thing for a travel lift, two travel lift piers?
No, because that's a totally new structure. If there was a travel lift pier here in the past, then possibly yes, but I'd be speaking out of turn to say precisely because that's a Corps of Engineers question. But I do know that they advised us on the to go when we go forward with the barge ramp that it could be done by letter of permission request, which was a very helpful suggestion that they made for us to do this permitting effort in a much more efficient and less time frame manner than a normal Section 10 permit would be.
So would that the decision then would rest with someone looking at it and saying this is fine, as opposed to the entire process where it gets a much deeper vetting?
Correct. It's more of a modified process because it's a smaller request based on a previous condition that previously existed, and now because of a previous action needs to be replaced.
Okay. Thank you, John. Any other questions, Commissioner?
Thank you.
Okay. Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you, John. That passes
Thank you.
3-0.
Before we moved on to the next one, I thought it might be helpful, since we're talking about the Walkham Waterway, to do a brief update of the Walkham Waterway project. So I have a few slides here to show you what the progress of the Walkham Waterway work is, since we're talking about the barge ramp and how it's impacted or impacts the Walkham Waterway. So this is the $28 million Walkham Waterway cleanup project, and this is the second attachment you have on the project. You'll see that the dredging work is roughly 52% of the whole project cost, and we're about 53% complete with that. The capping is about 18% of the whole project, and we're about 19% done with the capping effort. The sheet pile walls are 100% complete. The Maple Street bulkhead, you see that has not really started yet. The dolphin and fender piles, those are the ones that I addressed before. That's $723,000 worth of work, which is the fifth line down. That is, much of that cost is to replace the mooring dolphins that were removed as part of the Walker Waterway cleanup and are being put back along the north shore. There's 12 of them on the north shore and one on the south shore. We've removed approximately 20,000 tons of upland excavation and shoreline debris. That's about 95% complete. The clarifier, you'll notice, one of the big things you notice on the work when you go on Roder Street Bridge, if you look at that project, is the north shoreline, the upland excavation and the debris, and then the south shoreline, the clarifier demo, which is it's actually more than 90% complete now. That's all been removed. So the work left to do is there's about half the dredging left to do, about 80% of the capping remains. The pile caps on the north side, all the sheet piles on the north side is about 700 feet get capped with a concrete cap. That'll raise the sheet pile wall that you see out there now about 2 to 2.5 feet. The floats and gangways go in. That replaces what was removed as part of the landings at Colony Wharf structure they had before, and the approximately miscellaneous other work items. So that's where we're at to date on the project. Schedule-wise, the dredging needs to be completed by February 15th under the permit conditions, and they're on schedule for doing that. The capping needs to be completed by March 14th under the permit conditions, and they're on schedule for that. The dolphin and pile driving, which will satisfy the access conditions for the north side, for the landings at Colony Wharf and the BMI and the C Street Terminal. Again, that needs to be completed by March 14th for pile driving. And again, the pile driving is a vibratory pile driving only, no impact driving, which is an important permit condition. Sheet pile driving was done on December 9th and completed. The floats and gangways will be totally complete by the end of January. Colony Wharf, as of today, has, just today, has placed back a couple of piling and some temporary floats. And then finally, the North Shoreline Upland Area Restoration, April of 2016, that's going to be pretty much the completion for the north side. Things will be restored. Everybody on that north side will be back in service and completed. The temporary barge ramp then is due to be able to be placed and for use. At that point, the south shoreline should be done in a couple of months from now. There's much less restoration work to do on that. So just roughly, this is more for your package to look at on the progress, but this is a copy of our weekly report of work. The amounts in blue and yellow are debris and structure removal. That's the north side, north shore, and the south shore. On the inner waterway, you see the big circle, blue circle at the bottom, that's a clarifier, that's all been removed. The log pond area, you see the shape of the log pond area, that yellow swath, that's the shoreline debris removal that's been removed. The big red line there is all the sheet pile wall that was built on the north side, so there's about 700 feet of new sheet pile bulkhead wall that's been in place. This is the dredging of the inner waterway. The area in shaded green is the dredge prison that has been dredged out to date, not fully complete. The orange area is the area that's been accepted as complete, and as bathymetric surveys come in, these areas get certified for completion as reaching the proper dredge depth, and then it's certified to place capping material on top of this afterwards. The area, the red boundary is the revised dredged area. This is a shipping terminal. They're currently dredging out there right now. You see the dredge working 7 days a week, 12-hour shifts. So you see they've covered about a third of the area to be dredged in the shipping terminal berth 1 area. They have a little bit to do in berth 2 area that they're not at yet. The capping, this is capping in the log pond, so they've placed the filter layer, fabric layer, and the armored stone in this part of the log pond. The red area is the completed capping area. You'll see that's right up near the Colony Wharf section. That was the first area for them to complete so we could get Colony Wharf back in service as soon as possible. So that's now been completed and accepted, and Colony Wharf will be moving back to their original site here shortly. And that's it. Thank you. Any questions on that update? I went through that pretty fast.
I have one, John. The folks that operate that landing craft, which is actually in one of the slides you had before, will they be able to, Bryce, they've actually had to go elsewhere during this project. Will they be able to use this site again shortly, or are they out till the...
That's a great question. As soon as those mooring dolphins are back in place, they'll be able to moor to those. There could be a potential that they could moor, on the GP side temporarily, but I know they don't want to moor somewhere where they have to move to do something. So
and loading and unloading with the because they do have to load over that loading ramp on the front of that barge. Will they be able to do that?
Right. I don't think they'll be able to do that on the barge ramp because of the way their barge is set up. Their barge is set up more to ground on the ground, mm-hmm. Right, and then the vehicles drive over that. So we're trying to figure a way to make that work, but it's difficult when you, if you have two ramps have to come together and they have to be solid and supported. I don't think there's a way that we can make that work.
Okay.
We'll have to find another way. They can always obviously load over the bulkhead with a crane, or if they modified the side of their barge, they could side load off the barge ramp.
Okay.
Commissioner George, any questions? Well, John, it looks like it's going to be completed on time. It's on schedule.
It's currently on schedule and currently on budget. Yes. Uh-huh.
Wow.
Those are two nice statements.
Yeah.
Well, so far, contractor's been very good to work with. This is one of the biggest projects they've done, but they have their A-team on it, and they're committed to providing the contract into the terms and conditions of the contract. So it's
very good.
Been good to work with so far.
Any other questions of John?
No. We vote.
Okay, hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And for maybe the second time on this project, aye. Yes. It's for the ramp, so.
Noted.
Suspense. Thank you very much, John.
Thank you.
Diane, if you could please read our next action item.
Authorizing an additional $175,000 in contingency funds for the construction contract with American Construction Company to cover costs for an added scope in change order proposal number 4, hotspot cleanup work for the Whatcom Waterway Phase 1 cleanup project for a total authorized amount of $31,784,755.86.
Thank you, Diane. Commissioners, again, John Hergesheimer, Senior Project Engineer. This is a request by the Department of Ecology to add some work to the Whatcom Waterway contract, and it's described graphically. You see the area in yellow was the Chevron interaction site that was done in 2012. And when that site was done, first of all, it was performed because they actually found product leaking out of the bank. And so that was not acceptable, obviously. And so they performed an early cleanup action, interim action, to fix that. And that was done, that contract was done in 2012 by RAM Construction. And since then, we've known about the conditions of the site somewhat, but it was known that next to it, that area in green, when they did the original cleanup in 2012, the yellow area, it was noted that they certainly have not thought they've got all the product, but they got enough of it to contain it until the full cleanup action goes forward on the central waterfront site, basically the BMI lease site and the surrounding area, including the C Street terminal site. as a separate cleanup action. But because the Whatcom Waterway is performing some excavation just in that area, there's a close-up view on the next page of that area. Whatcom Waterway is excavating a zone right along here and removing some soil as part of relief for the sheet pile wall, its installation prior to dredging, which is going to go forward shortly. But at this point, it was deemed appropriate to, instead of excavating material out to a shallow level and then just putting material back on top and not really fixing the known deeper problem, Ecology has said, let's go after and down to the deeper area and get the deep stuff first, get it all out now, and not have to come back and redig through clean material to go around and get the dirty material. So that's what this request is for. It's a change order to American Construction, but it's outside the scope of the original contract. That's why we wanted to bring it to commission, because it is an impact to our contingency under the American contract. So that's why we're asking to increase the contingency of the contract account for $175,000 to cover the added cost of this work. And that $175,000 includes, you see there on my memo down below, the scope of this work. Bid item 6 is upland excavation. That's a current bid item in the American contract, so it'd just be an added unit cost or added units to the unit price contract. So it would add approximately 400 tons of material to be excavated at the contract price of $22 a ton. And the big item is the additional estimated quantity of 700 tons of contaminated material. That's down in the low or bottom zone of the excavation. It's shown on the cross section. This area is the clean material that American is going to dig and replace. And then the green area is the added hotspot depth. And the combination of the 400 tons of clean and the 700 tons of assumed contaminated material adds a big quantity to American's contract costs under the unit prices. But then in addition to that, because this excavation is going quite deep, there's added costs of $8,000 for deeper excavation, meaning bigger equipment. Other means have to be used to get deeper than what was planned under the original work under the bid. And also the dewatering. This is going to be down below the water table, and so this needs to be dewatered, and because it's contaminated soil, needs to be treated, and then the effluent pumped to the ASB. So that's an additional $26,000 approximate estimate for the work. But then, because we're digging in soils that are still unknown, I've put a contingency in there, pretty healthy contingency. Once we're in there digging that, and we're digging it around the tides and based on tidal flows, tidal impacts, I put a contingency in there of approximately $68,000 to excavate more material if it looks like it needs to come out as part of this action, instead of just quitting and then backfilling with clean material and then not solving this whole problem in this zone and having to go back yet again. So I felt it wise to put in that contingency.
John, 700 tons, how many tons in a dump truck? Average one?
A dump truck's, a truck and trailer is about 35 tons of material.
Okay.
So there's... Yeah, so there might be 20 truckloads, truck and trailer loads. Okay. It's actually a fairly small area, but it's a fairly large cost because of the contaminated nature. So any contaminated material has to go to a Subtitle D landfill like Wenatchee or Columbia Ridge in Oregon.
Oh, it's not going into the ASB.
The material is only the dewatering
Okay,
is, yeah.
And the port's footing half of this 175,000?
No, Commissioner, this is fully covered by the cleanup action, so 50% is funded by MACA and 50% by the AIG insurance account.
Oh, okay, so none, even in a change order, none is footed by the port?
That's
Very
correct.
good. Okay.
No, this is all eligible costs as part of the cleanup, either from the Whatcom Waterway side or from the Central Waterfront cleanup site. They're both MACA-approved funds and AIG-approved funding sources.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions, Commissioner?
I have one for you, John. So there was an interim bit of work done because there was a problem that was occurring at the time. And then there was an assumption that in the future this would all be dug out. And in the interim, we let a contract to All American. Stop with it. It's like saying Chuckanut or Mount Baker. It's like too many of them. American Construction to do the dredging. And so that starts. So at what point were we ever going to clean this up in the first place? Because now we're just adding it onto a new contract.
Well, in this case, we added, Commissioner, we added the area in green on because it was known and observed as the interim action was being done, the area in yellow here. Mm-hmm. And as that was being performed, it was obvious when you're out there looking at the site that, hey, we didn't go far enough, there's more here. But the interim action only covered that specific area in yellow. Mm-hmm. Did not cover the bigger area, nor did our construction contract with RAM cover a bigger area. Mm-hmm. And it was in January, and we're fighting tides. So we thought, let's button up the interim action area as it's designed, knowing we're going to be coming back soon. But the soon was based on the RIFS, the Remedial Investigation Feasibility Study for the whole Central Waterfront site. And that solution has not been yet to ecology and vetted with ecology. It's on its way there. And so that cleanup action may involve some excavation, but may not. And Brian Gowan can speak to that better than I can. But the bottom line is the full cleanup action for the upland area is not determined at this time with ecology.
So this particular part of this project was considered with the upland area as opposed to the waterway. Correct. Which is why it wasn't in the American contract in the first place.
That's correct.
And when did ecology say, hey, since you're there, why don't you just keep digging?
It was about, I think, end of July. It was brought up that, since American is doing this work and they're going to be taking material off the top of this known area, hotspot, it makes sense to go down and get more instead of paying American to dig out and then put back, and then having to come back later at a later date and dig that same material out a second time and go deeper.
This may be a question for Brian, but does this solve the issue that has come up with BMI about contamination on that site and them not being able to place a stress pad?
Thanks, Commissioner. Brian Gowan, Director of Environmental Programs. This particular extra hotspot removal that John's done a great job of describing does not address that question for the whole BMI lease area. And as John indicated, the Central Waterfront's cleanup site, which is the upland area that includes these areas and another 50 acres all the way from Whatcom Waterway to the I&J waterway. So there's a much larger MATCA cleanup site that we are working with ecology on the detailed final cleanup decision. It will include this as well as the BMI lease area, as well as where All American Marine is going and a variety of other things within that 50 acres. And that we expect to have for ecology review in the near future, in the next couple of months. The actual implementation of that could take a few years as well. But this is a small part of that much larger upland site.
Well, in a way, it almost begs the question then, in this, what I'm looking at, this image, you clean up the yellow, you clean up the green, that gets signed off on. We have a new sheet pile wall roughly where that blue line is, and then the area where it says BMI lease site is either going to recontaminate this area or it's not a problem at all. Right,
that's a really good point. And the remedial investigation has a significant amount of technical information on the groundwater flow, how that contaminant transport is happening. This is probably the worst area here, which is why the area in yellow right next to it was where, sheen was coming out into the waterway, and we knew that there was another concentrated area right behind that bulkhead because it was just backing up behind there. So we know that there is some additional work that will likely have to happen as you get further up into the upland where the BMI leasehold is, but this is not as highly contaminated as this, so the recontamination of this is unlikely. And the sheet pile wall that is the blue dotted line that's going in for the Whatcom Waterway cleanup also serves the purpose of a containment wall for any contaminants in the upland. So that's another kind of dual purpose cleanup component that serves the central waterfront side as well.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Okay.
Any questions?
Any other questions? Any other questions from you, Commissioner? Okay, hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Passes 3-0. And item number 8, if you could please read it, Diane.
Authorize the executive director to conclude the contracting required for the emergency repairs performed by the Fairhaven Marine Industrial Park Sewer Force Main by executing final contract amount of $27,000 with Faber Construction of Linden, Washington.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. Adam Fulton, Facilities Director. The Commission may recall on October 15th, the Commission ratified the declaration of emergency declared by our Executive Director, Rob Fix, as regarding an active sewage leak occurring on our Fairhaven Marine Industrial Park property. The emergency action was, of course, to replace the pipe, which has been done. And this action before you today is to simply authorize the closure of that emergency action. The fiscal impact is in the memo to you and halfway down the page, and totals approximately $32,000. And that's the design, that's the archaeological inspection, that's the construction, permitting, and our own in-house observation, as well as the advertisement of the declaration itself. There is a slight increase in the construction cost. The time frame of that, or the timeline of that, was on Tuesday. We met with the city, determined the solution. The contractor and I worked out an estimate on the phone that afternoon. We formalized it into a memo by noon the following day. And that is the estimate that the commissioners had of $24,000 tops. And then the city came back to us and asked that we make some design modifications. So it lengthened the pipe about 20 feet and took the route further to the east through the sidewalk and away from some of their water valves. So the price went up just a little bit. That is the action. Do the commissioners have any questions about this?
No, but I appreciate the subliminal message there in the corner.
He likes the message.
Sorry.
He just took the message off. That little Santa Claus message here for you, Commissioner.
8 days, everybody.
8 days till Christmas. He just took it off.
Wow.
Jeez. Okay, Commissioner Jorgensen, any questions?
Gosh, no.
I have none, so hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Got the sewer.
Thank you, Adam. That passes 3-0. Item number 9.
Authorize the executive director to execute PSA Amendment Number 4 with Carletti Architects for the final design of the All-American Marine Manufacturing Facility project in the amount of $277,701 for a total authorized PSA amount of $606,429 and increase CIP account number 107-655-1900 in the amount of $300,000 for an approved project budget of $635,000.
Good afternoon again, Commissioners. You might recall last meeting we did a bridge amendment to this PSA, $50,000 to keep the project moving and to figure out exactly where we were putting the building and how big the building was going to be. And we have since done that and then have been able to put hard design numbers to it. So this PSA amendment is simply the completion of the actual final design PSA amendment. The total of the PSA amendment is right around $606,000, which, on $9 million of construction is somewhere between 6 and 7% design fees, which I think is actually the lowest I've ever done. By way of comparison, the commercial terminal at the airport was in the 12 to 13%. This is a simpler building, so it should be lower. As well, the project is proceeding very quickly. We have we've been meeting with the city, but we have our formal pre-application meeting with them on January 5th. And of course, the due date for this building to be constructed is almost 1 year from today, 12/31/16. So with that, do the commissioners have any questions on this amendment?
I have a request, Adam. So there's a constant battle, I suppose, between urban development and people's peace, and that's lighting. And I know that I get requests all the time to turn the lights off on the old tissue warehouse. So I would hope that in this design that we can keep the lighting that they need there on their property, if possible. I know sometimes a little bit more difficult, but if there's a lighting design for this project at all, it would be really fantastic if we could keep it as minimally invasive to the rest of the neighborhood.
Yeah, thank you for that comment, and that will be done. We designed according to dark skies standards, which means a full cutoff fixture on the outside of buildings. Thank you.
Okay. Any questions, Commissioner? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. That passes 3-0. As president of this commission, I am now we have one more item, and I'm going to turn over the gavel and the presidency for the last item to Commissioner Jorgensen and let him tackle the last action item and then gavel the meeting closed if we have no other business before us.
Well, gee whiz, can I use Commissioner McCauley's head for the...
Just ask her to read item 10.
Would you please read item number 10?
Authorize the executive director to execute a contract with Hilco Contracting Incorporated of Bellingham, Washington for the HVAC replacement project 2015 in the amount of $82,610.91 plus a 10% contingency for a total contract amount authorized in the amount of $91,000.
Good afternoon, third time commissioners, and particularly to you, Commissioner Jorgensen. Let me say that it is my very sincere and extreme privilege to bring the final action to you in your commission office. I just want to say personally and as a taxpayer and someone raising his family in this county, thank you for your direction and your service. I appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
This action is to replace 3 HVAC units on top of the Nikki's Bella Marina restaurant. These units are approximately 30 years old, long past their prime, and we are spending quite a bit of money maintaining them. This is budgeted work in the 2015 capital improvement project. The commissioner should note that we are not taking the lowest bid. We are taking the lowest responsible and responsive bid. The lowest bid at the advice of our legal counsel was not accepted due to being an incomplete bid. It contained irregularities that we could not waive. However, the project still remains very fantastically within budget, $82,000 bid on a $122,000 budget. We have not received any complaint or bid protest. Do the commissioners have any questions about this?
I'm waiting for Jorgensen.
Any questions?
I do have one. So I think I've asked this before. Have it had an opportunity to discuss the issues that the other bid had with the folks that put that bid in, and so they can correct them and still bid on work for the port in the future?
That's a question. Yes, we have. Sort of strangely, we had bid this work earlier in the year and had some real difficulties. It's one of the rare times that we've ever second bid a project. And they bid that time perfectly. And then suddenly on this bid, suddenly there was a qualified bid inclusion, and it was very odd. And I've spoken with them, and our contracts administrator, Susan French, has spoken with them, and they understand it, and there's no sour grapes or hard feelings. Yeah.
I have no questions.
Any other questions?
That's it? Yes, sir.
No other questions? If we could vote on this. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Aye. Oh, no, I can't do that. Yeah, I can't do both, can you? That's
Sometimes
right.
I wish I could.
Don't close the meeting just yet. We got a couple of new business items, Commissioner. The first one being the streets that are being put into the new development. The city has asked us to give them a up or down nod on whether or not we like the name Greenery. You'll recall there's two initial streets going in. One starts at Chestnut Road there and parallels the Whatcom Waterway. That's what they want to call Greenery. It ends at about the Laurel Street in front of Board Mill, and Laurel Street then takes you out to Cornwall. Laurel is already named because it's in alignment with existing Laurel. Granary is a new street that's not in an existing alignment, and the city would like to name that Granary. Harcourt has weighed in and said they're fine with Granary. It seems most of the city folks like Granary as well, so I'm just looking to you guys to see whether Granary is acceptable for you.
Is there going to be confusion between the Granary and the Granary Street?
I think it'll be called Granary Avenue. I'm not sure exactly what the appendix will be on the back, but no, I don't anticipate there'll be too much confusion.
Did Washington Egg Co-op ever come up in this conversation?
For a street?
That's the name of the building.
For a street name? Or?
For anything. I know it's been Granary forever. It doesn't bother me. I don't know. So. I mean, every plan I've ever seen goes back and says.
I did notice that on the architect's gingerbread house that I think he had Washington Food Co-op on there. So am I right on that? I'm sorry, save the Granary. It was Granary on there.
I don't recall the difference between a street and an avenue.
You're looking at the wrong guy.
Your secretary left.
Engineers, anybody?
I don't know who you should check
There's
with.
got to be a difference. I mean, gosh. No. Audience have any comment?
I have no objection to that name.
No, I don't either.
Cool. Nobody recommended Jorgensen Street, right?
No one recommended Jorgensen Street. No.
Jorgensen Avenue, Jorgensen Street, which
We'll pass that.
That was the problem. They couldn't settle on street or avenue. A couple other items here for the commission. Just some acknowledgments. We've got some folks that have served the port a long time that are retiring. One of them is a port electrician. His name is Jeff Gray. Today will be his last day. He's not here, but if you'd so inclined, send him a quick note or give him a call and congratulate him. Jeff's been with the port, as I said, for 31 years. It's a long time in public service. Just the go-to guy when we had electrical needs. So a big thanks to Jeff for his years of service. Another one that came up that I just learned of yesterday, which will take effect at the end of this month, Susan French is also retiring, and you just heard Susan's name mentioned regarding a bid award. And when Adam referred to our Cracker Jack legal team coming up with a solution there, it was actually Susan French that created the solution. So we'll make sure Mr. Schmeller doesn't bill us.
very good.
But no, so Susan French was 26 years of service at the port, and she served as our contracts administrator. And I'm a little worried about that position. She was very good at what she did.
She had good cookies and things.
There he is. Adam, are you ready? Okay.
And we will definitely miss the cookies in front of Susan French's desk.
Yeah, that was a nice.
Somebody pick up that mantle.
Nice addition.
That's all.
Any other comments or?
No, Jim.
No. Okay. Well,
I'll say. You know what? I'll say this on Thursday at the party. So I'm going to save it for the party. But it's been a real pleasure actually working with you.
Is Thursday's gathering? Is it a roast?
I don't know.
I think it is now.
The beef or what?
You know, I've got a quick list of projects here if we got a second that Jim has been involved in approving. The Georgia Pacific acquisition, obviously a big one. You can't even put that into the millions because we don't know at the end of the day what that's going to be.
But wasn't that one of your very first votes?
It's his first vote, I believe.
Yeah, that was it. Yep. I couldn't believe it.
Actually, was to condemn the ASB Marina.
proposal to
That's
fill
right,
in the
yep.
ASB Marina.
Yep.
And the port.
Is your mic on?
Commissioner Jorgensen's first vote was to condemn the ASB Marina for public use because Georgia Pacific had decided to fill it in with dredge sediments, and the Port Commission felt at the time that that too would fail like every other landfill on the shore. It was not a good idea. And so essentially Commissioner Jorgensen's first vote was to sue a Fortune 500 company by the Port of Bellingham.
Jim. I thought that was just proper thing to do.
Later in his tenure here, Mr. Jorgensen helped approve the runway resurfacing at BLI. That was a $30 million project, and that happened right at the peak of the recession in Whatcom County. So I think it was a critical time that work happened.
He spent a lot of money since
He has. The BLI terminal expansion was $38.6 million, so another huge project. Other smaller projects that Mr. Jorgensen approved: Marine Park shoreline restoration down in Fairhaven, the Squalicum Creek estuary restoration, the Blaine Wharf District Plan, and all the Blaine industrial planning that's happened, the Fairhaven Shipyard expansion, and the Bellwether on the Bay development. All big projects that you had a hand in. So thank you very much, Mr. Jorgensen.
I really don't know what to say, honestly. I'm going to really miss this group of people, and these people up front here are kind of crazy. But they're a lot of fun to be around, and very bright and intelligent and very good planners and designers and all. I just can't imagine working with a better group of people than you folks. It's been a real treat for me, and I'm going to miss you, and I might even come down and have coffee sometime just to bug you, Mike.
Well, now we can hang out legally. Right?
So, without further ado, and thank you for that nice ovation. That was, wow. I'm kind of an emotional guy, so if I start to cry, I might, I'm telling you. Anyway, I hope that you can make it Thursday night. It'd really be fun to see you there, and I'm sure there'll be a couple things said, maybe. Sylvia, I understand, is the master of ceremonies, and I don't trust her as far as I could throw her, so we'll see what happens. But anyway, the last old bang of the gavel for me, and it's been great.